All right, everyone, settle in and welcome to today's Explainer. Get comfortable because today we are taking on one of the most famous, absolutely fiercely debated geographical legends in human history. For decades, right, just the mere mention of the Bermuda Triangle has instantly conjured up these wild images of vanished ships, missing planes, spinning compasses, the whole shebang. I mean, it is a topic that has completely captured human imagination. But as focused learners, we want to know what's actually going on beneath the surface of all that hype.
Okay, let's quickly breeze through today's syllabus. We're going to cover Section 1, Defining the Triangle, Section 2, Famous Historical Disappearances, Section 3, Media Hype and Wild Theories, Section 4, The Science of the Triangle, and finally Section 5, Myth versus Reality.
So diving right into Section 1, Defining the Imaginary Triangle. Because, before it was this massive global franchise of fear, it was literally just a stretch of water.
Mental map time. I want you to picture how these three incredibly busy shipping nodes connect. Start over in the west at Miami, Florida, trace a line out into the Atlantic Ocean, over to the island of Bermuda, and then drop that line south to San Juan, Puerto Rico, before bringing it right back to Miami. That giant triangular shape, that is our theater of operations.
But here is the thing you really have to wrap your head around. This imaginary boundary is massive. We are talking anywhere from 500,000 to 1.5 million square miles of the western part of the North Atlantic Ocean. That is a ton of ocean. In fact, it's some of the busiest oceanic real estate on planet Earth. These waters sit directly on top of major international shipping and aviation routes. And that sheer volume of traffic, well, that's an absolutely crucial piece of our puzzle, as we're going to see in just a minute.
Moving right along to Section 2, Famous Historical Disappearances. Let's open up the historical case files that built this legend.
The seeds of this particular myth were planted centuries ago. I mean, way back on his very first voyage through the Atlantic, Christopher Columbus himself reported unusual compass readings. Some of his accounts even suggest he saw mysterious lights dancing over the horizon. Now sure, historians debate the exact translation of his logs, but the fact remains, these super early travel stories laid the groundwork for a region that seemed, well, just a little bit off.
But the real fame? That exploded in the 20th century. Just think about the timeline of these famous vanishing acts. You've got the USS Cyclops in 1918, the infamous Flight 19 in 1945, the truly bizarre vanishings of the British passenger planes Star Tiger and Star Ariel in 48 and 49, and the Marine Sulphur Queen in 1963. These weren't just statistics, you guys. These were massive, highly publicized, unsolved historical mysteries.
Now, what makes these primary examples stick in our minds for so long is the sheer, devastating scale of the tragedy. Take the USS Cyclops. It was a massive naval cargo ship carrying over 300 crew and passengers, and it vanished without a single distress call. Just gone. It remains one of the largest non-combat losses in U.S. naval history. And Flight 19? 5 Navy torpedo bombers on a routine training run. The leader gets disoriented, the compasses malfunction, and they completely disappear. And to make it even more tragic, the rescue plane sent to find them vanished too. 27 personnel just wiped from the map.
Section 3, Media Hype and Wild Theories. Because tragedies of that magnitude, they demand answers. And when there is no wreckage, well, human imagination is more than happy to fill the void.
Actually, up until the mid-1960s, these disappearances were largely treated as individual, isolated tragedies. But then, in 1964, a writer named Vincent Gaddis published a popular magazine article where he coined a very catchy, very famous phrase, the Bermuda Triangle. Gaddis was the ultimate amplifier. He literally took these isolated, terrible events, drew a line around them, and packaged them up into a single, highly marketable global franchise.
And boy, did the pop culture machine go into overdrive. Novels, films, TV shows, they all started amplifying these myths purely for public entertainment. Extraterrestrials capturing ships? Check. Advanced energy crystals from the sunken lost city of Atlantis messing with airplane navigation? Check. Dimensional gateways, time warps, and my personal favorite, giant sea monsters. Look, these sci-fi theories are wildly entertaining, but they lack literally any scientific backing whatsoever.
Which brings us to a moment of Socratic reflection. I really want to challenge your misconceptions right here. When you hear about a plane vanishing, is your very first instinct to blame a time portal, or does it make a bit more sense to look at sudden storms and human miscalculation? It is time to pivot our lecture away from the myth and dive into the empirical evidence.
Welcome to Section 4, the science of the triangle. We are going to dismantle the supernatural claims right now with hard, objective marine science.
When marine scientists and meteorologists look at this region, I promise you, they don't see Atlantis. They see extremely dangerous but totally mundane realities. This part of the ocean is notorious for sudden squalls, hurricanes, and massive waterspouts. Add human error to the mix. Remember, almost all of these famous cases happened way before modern GPS existed. Plus, you've got the Gulf Stream, which is basically a massive, fast-moving oceanic river that can scatter shipwreckage miles away in just hours. Oh, and those spinning compasses? The Earth's magnetic field isn't uniform. Compass deviations are a perfectly known natural phenomenon, not magic.
But here is an absolutely crucial point: rogue waves. For centuries, sailors talked about these giant, sudden walls of water appearing out of nowhere, and honestly, people just dismissed them as tall tales. But modern satellite observations confirm they are 100% real. These are unexpected, terrifyingly steep waves that can easily exceed 30 meters in height. That's almost 100 feet. A wave like that can instantly overwhelm and sink a massive vessel before a distress call can even be keyed up.
Then there's this fascinating idea called the methane gas hypothesis. Researchers actually found large pockets of methane hydrates trapped deep beneath the seabed. If a seismic event triggers a sudden release of this gas, it bubbles up, drastically decreasing the density of the water. If a ship happens to be sitting in that bubbling water, it would instantly lose its buoyancy and drop like a literal stone. It's an incredible natural phenomenon. Though, to be fair, we should definitely clarify that while it might explain sunken ships, it doesn't do a single thing to explain an airplane falling out of the sky.
Okay, let's move to our final section, Section 5, Myth versus Reality. We've seen the fun, spooky lore, and we've seen the hard science. It's time to put them head-to-head.
When we stack the myth directly against scientific reality, the contrast is night and day. The myth insists that ships constantly vanish here at these alarming, spooky rates. But the scientific reality? Well, maritime authorities will tell you that the statistical loss rates here are completely normal for a heavily traveled ocean region. The myth says there's never any wreckage. Reality shows us wreckage is found all the time. The myth cries supernatural forces. Science points to zero empirical evidence. Look, when you have thousands upon thousands of ships safely crossing an area every single year, the few tragedies that do unfortunately occur are mathematically expected.
And that brilliantly illustrates why a really common comparison you hear completely fails. People love to compare the Bermuda Triangle to a cosmic black hole. Under rigorous scientific scrutiny, this is utterly false. The triangle is a geographic region on Earth with normal gravity and natural weather systems. A black hole is a massive astrophysical object with extreme gravity where literally nothing escapes its event horizon. They are only similar in their ability to capture public fascination.
So why, despite all of this rigorous scientific proof, does the myth survive? Well, it really comes down to human nature. We have this innate desire for a good mystery, right? We just love the unknown. Add in the massive media influence that profits off sensationalism, the fact that these early mysteries lacked modern tracking tech, and the profound psychological effects of how we process information, and you get a legend that stubbornly refuses to die. Which actually brings us to the most important psychological takeaway of today's explainer: selection bias. This is the tendency for our brains to vividly remember the one highly unusual, dramatic story, while completely ignoring the millions of ordinary, everyday events. We obsess over the one Flight 19 that vanished, but we completely ignore the millions of safe, boring commercial flights that cross the Bermuda Triangle every single year without so much as a bumped cup of coffee.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder as we wrap up. The Bermuda Triangle teaches us that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. It shows us just how easily our own perception can be warped by a really good story. So as you head out from today's lecture, I want you to honestly ask yourself, what other mysteries or strongly held beliefs in your own life are really just the result of selection bias? Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you guys in the next explainer.